What's the point of creating if you can't actually make any money off of it? No, seriously, what is the fucking point of creating anything if someone else can just come along and steal your work and profit from it and just not give anything back? I'm Michael Wilk, coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio. This is a Wilk Report with a bit of an update on Anas Abdin's quest for justice against CBS and thief Alex Klutzman. Yeah, ruling came down in the appeal. He was denied again, which was not unexpected considering no judge is willing to hold CBS accountable for theft. But yeah, let's go ahead and get to the news article here. CBS beats copyright claims over Star Trek Discovery, corrected, because apparently there was a correction from yesterday. And this is a dishonest headline because it might have beaten the copyright claims, but the article itself is full of falsehoods. First of all, when it says didn't infringe copyrights in unreleased video game, works not substantially similar, Circuit Court affirms, and yet a 5-year-old can tell that yes, this was blatantly stolen. And I'm going to leave this up on the screen for a minute just so you can get a good look. Here's a tardigrade from Anas Abdin's game, which predates STD. Here's a tardigrade from STD. Not similar? Really? Carter, again, almost identical to Stamets, Aziz. Culber, almost identical. Yolanda, Burnham, almost identical. Natasha, Tilly, almost identical. And yet, in this blatant lie fest, coming from BloombergLaw.com. Yeah, a story arc about a giant tardigrade in STD didn't infringe a copyright, except it did, in an unreleased video game that also featured a giant tardigrade, the Second Circuit Court affirmed on Monday. Many elements of the work that CBS Broadcasting Corporation and Netflix Corporation allegedly infringed, no, they did infringe, and you know this, covered uncopyrightable scientific facts and ideas about tardigrades, except that is not the argument that Anas Abdin made. Because Anas Abdin was never trying to copyright tardigrades, the animal. He was trying to say, and this is the absolute truth, whether you like it or not, he was saying that the specific iteration of this tardigrade, the giant blue tardigrade that can transport people across time and space, was blatantly stolen by CBS. He's not trying to claim all tardigrades as copywritten by him. No, that is a blatant lie, and the judge knew it was a lie. It's complete bullshit, as you'll see. Anas Abdin owns a copyright in the distillation of the concept for his video game. No. He owns the copyright for his video game Tardigrades. And again, I'm going to show you the specific iteration of the tardigrade and the similarities right here on the screen that you can see, plain as day. So yeah, it features a space botanist who travels through space after being absorbed into a giant tardigrade based on the real-life microscopic creature that can endure extreme heat, cold, pressure, and radiation. 3 episodes in the first season of STD also involve a space encounter with a massive tardigrade-like creature, and Abdin sued CBS for copyright infringement in Manhattan Federal Court. The U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York dismissed Abdin's claims last September. The Second Circuit affirmed that CBS and Netflix, which is licensed to air STD outside the United States, didn't infringe because their works aren't substantially similar. Let me highlight that for you again. The Second Court affirmed that CBS and Netflix, which is licensed to air STD outside of the United States, didn't infringe because their works aren't substantially similar. Except they are.
So derivative, in fact, that in Europe it's considered plagiarized.
Ay. Abdin's space-traveling tardigrade is an unprotectable idea because it is a generalized expression of a scientific fact, namely the known ability of a tardigrade to survive in space, the court said. By permitting Abdin to exclusively own the idea of a space-traveling tardigrade, this court would improperly withdraw that idea from the public domain and stifle creativity naturally flowing from the scientific fact that tardigrades can survive the vacuum of space. All right, so this is a bullshit argument that the judges are making, because what they're saying is that the expression of the idea, the very expression of scientific fact. I mean, first of all, no scientist worth his or her salt claims that a giant tardigrade that is big enough to encompass a human being even exists. And even if it did, would it be able to survive the vacuum of space for an indefinite period of time? Well, obviously no. So this was an idea that Anas Abdin created in his own mind for his video game that was blatantly stolen by Alex Klutzman, the serial thief who has been tied to a number of lawsuits, from Cowboys and Aliens to other properties, including The Island, wherein someone claimed that he stole the work. And I've got videos linked to in the upper right-hand corner that you can see related to this subject, because this is not the first time that Alex Klutzman has been accused of thievery with regards to other people's copyrighted content. So let me go ahead and return to the article here, because, I mean, this is just bullshit here. So, basically what the judge is saying here is like, oh, well, if we were to allow the plaintiff's claim, then corporations would not be allowed to steal the idea and make a profit off of it at Abdin's expense. And here's the most ridiculous thing. The court also said elements of Abdin's work were uncopyrightable stock themes from science fiction, including space travel and alien encounters. Except that's not what Abdin is arguing. Because again, a 5-year-old could look at the similarity in these images and conclude that, yes, there is blatant thievery going on here. So, yeah, Judge Denny Chin wrote the opinion, joined by Judge Susan L. Carney and Judge Carrie A. Dooley, probably all on the employ of CBS or at least bribed, because you have to be bribed in order to make such a ridiculous ruling. It is clear from the evidence available. And Ketwalski, yes, I am calling you out, you fucking liar. I am calling you out because you stabbed Anas Abdin in the back after initially telling the truth about STD and Alex Klutzman blatantly stealing from Anas Abdin and pointing out all the similarities and rightly describing the common sense evidence right in front of our faces that CBS and Alex Klutzman blatantly stole Anas Abdin's work. It wasn't until Midnight's Edge and Nerdrotic and other people you despise because they are more popular than you are, or ever will be, decided to try and support Anas in his lawsuit by raising money for him for the appeal. That's when you turned on him and started lying. And you know you are lying. So yes, Ketwalski, you are a fucking liar. Ugh. But, this is what kills me, because I've been the victim of theft myself, and the idea that people get away with stealing what's yours. They steal your work, they steal your property, they steal everything you have so that they can benefit from what you own, and you're not allowed to have any recourse. Because the ruling here is not based on any facts or any evidence. It is based solely on the notion that if CBS were to be held accountable for its crimes, if Alex Klutzman were to be held accountable for his crimes, they would have to pay Anas Abdin all the money that he would have earned from his video game if they hadn't stolen it for their crap TV show. And they're not about to set a precedent that would hold a large corporation accountable. So let me go ahead and give you an idea of just how this has affected Anas Abdin. Because this is going back to April, but it still sums up the feelings that he must be going through. It says, sadly, some do not understand what goes on in my heart and mind as I say I don't know how to continue developing my project Tardigrades. I've never wanted to talk or show what you are about to see, but I have no choice. How developed was Tardigrades? The exact moment it was plagiarized on TV, the project was about 80% done, according to Anas Abdin. That means he was very nearly finished with this thing. and just, having to try and go back and open up the files to keep working on it, it's an emotionally draining experience, because knowing that he can't even finish this thing without CBS turning around and stealing more of it or suing him for copyright infringement because of work that he created. And again, this is what you are looking at. The similarities are undeniable, and it is a flat-out lie to say that CBS didn't infringe on copyright. It is a lie to say that CBS did not blatantly rip off something that somebody else had created. And it's not the first time. Remember back in the 1990s, J. Michael Straczynski came up with Babylon 5, pitched it to CBS, and they stole the idea from him to make Deep Space Nine, and that resulted in a lawsuit. Yeah, so this isn't the first time. And you have to consider the history of CBS and Paramount and Alex Klutzman in all of this. They are serial thieves. It is a lie to say that, there's no substantial similarity between what Anas Abdin created and the content that was made by STD in order to benefit from somebody else's work. It is a lie. It is a lie based on the assumption that you and I are too stupid to be able to trust the evidence of our own eyes and understand that this was a blatant act of theft. I mean, what's to stop YouTube from stealing all the money that us YouTubers have made for the website through the monetization program and say, oh yeah, we're going to keep all that and you're just going to do all this for free and not make any money off it? What's to stop them from doing that? Nothing. Why should anyone come up with anything anymore knowing that it's going to be stolen by some big corporation? This is a message that CBS and its high-powered attorneys and its bribed judges, because there's no fucking way that any judge who is not bought off could honestly say that this was not an infringement of copyrighted material. No judge who is not completely bought and owned can look at the evidence available and say that these works are not substantially similar. The arguments made by CBS would be laughed out of any reasonable court. But this is not a reasonable court. It is a court stacked with right-wing assholes, corporatists, by both Republicans and Democrats, to defend corporate interests against the people they exploit, against the people they steal from. In my description below, I've got a link to Anas Abdin's GoFundMe. I don't know what he's going to be doing in light of this latest ruling. I hope he continues to try and appeal, but it's not looking good. But this needs to go as high as it possibly can, because it's not just about Anas Abdin. This is about the right of every content creator, past, present, and future, to be able to make a living from our own work without the fear that it will be stolen by some large corporation with deep pockets, because it cannot be bothered to come up with anything new or different or original, that it has to steal from other people's works and degrade them and hollow them out just so that it can sell product to demographics who are never going to buy it in the first place. Which is why STD and Picard and Lower Decks are having the problems that they are, because nobody's fucking watching them. They're shit TV shows created by people who despise the source material, Star Trek, in order to sell it to people who don't give a shit about Star Trek. And they think that they can get away with stealing from other people, whether it's Anas Abdin or Brian Fuller or Robert Meyer Burnett. Because if you watch their videos and the stuff that they've done in interviews with Midnight's Edge and other channels, where they explore in detail the concepts that they came up with for Star Trek shows, like sending it 1,000 years in the future when the Federation no longer exists. And what does Alex Klutzman do? Goes out and steals that idea from Robert Meyer Burnett for STD Season 3, which can't even record because of the pandemic. So what good did stealing his idea do you? When Season 2 was a monumental failure. When Netflix wouldn't even distribute it. What does that say for Picard? Which, again, derivative. What does it say about that show? That Netflix wouldn't distribute it. They had to go to Amazon for international streaming. And even that platform is not seeing a good return on its investment, so that Picard Season 2, even that may not happen. Partly because of the pandemic, but also because no one's fucking watching it. The numbers show us this. And now Lower Decks, a cartoon that blatantly rips off everything from Rick and Morty to Marvel and satirizes and makes jokes out of Star Trek. Again, to pander to people who were never going to watch the show in the first place because they have no interest in it. Star Trek, much like Star Wars, is a niche property, which means it only has appeal to a niche audience. And yeah, that there is something to be said for trying to broaden the appeal outside of that audience, but you have to do it in a way that still respects and retains that original audience, without which you have no show. You have no movies. Because the audiences you alienated aren't going to turn out and watch them, or spend money on them, or on the merchandise tied to that content. And the people you're making it for, again, are not watching. And they're not going to buy the merchandise. And if you thought this was a righteous rant, wait until you see my take on Doctor Who. If you like what you've heard and you want to hear more, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon and select all to receive notifications whenever we upload new content. Like this video, share it. If you want to help support the channel, keep the lights on, help us bring you more content, head over to our Patreon or our Subscribe Star page. We can't do this without you. Until next time, this is Michael Wilk for the Wilk Report saying take care. Good night. I'm out.